Alaska, where there are old triumphs, but also new frontiers, with challenges as great as the state itself, but a belief the best is yet to come, bringing you the faces, the places, and the spirit of the last frontier. This is Frontiers with Rhonda McBride.
Well, still to come, we continue the conversation from the front lines of rural education. Evon Peter from UAF joins us here in Anchorage, and we'll also have Lance Twitchell, a native language professor from Juneau, when we come back. Well, if there is one thing our next two guests are passionate about, that's injecting Alaska Native culture and values and languages into our schools and colleges. And joining us now, Evon Peter, a Vice Chancellor at UAF. And we also have Lance Twitchell coming to us from Juneau. He's a professor of native languages at the University of Alaska Southeast. So I guess maybe we could begin and get some flavors of native language from Tlingit country. So we'll start with you, Lance. And so what did you just say to us?
I said, great, and thank you in both Tlingit and in Haida. And then in Tlingit, my name is Chone, and it's good to see you all. It's
good to see you too. So Evon, you are Gwich'in.
Chet, Hai Cho, Jukchungwinzi, Nachunchitonch. And what I shared was Ariga, but in Gwich'in, which is Chet, which means all right. That's good. And it's good to see everyone this afternoon.
Say that again. Chet?
Chet.
That means very good, right?
Yep.
So you brought a drum with us, with you. Tell us about that.
I brought the drum in honor of the late Chief David Salmon from Chalkitsik, who was a real big advocate of education among our people, but also of remembering the cultural tools for teaching that our people have, and to always utilize those as well, and to integrate them really into how we do education.
So let's turn to Lance here. In Southeast Alaska, what are some of the tools people use to teach?
Some of the tools we use to teach are, we bring in the drum, and we have songs, and we talk about whose clans those songs belong to. We have a number of different cultural artifacts and things that are just belonging to our people and that are in the lifeblood of our people. And the primary thing is our language. We bring our language into the schools, and we see it throughout the Juneau area and across Southeast Alaska, more use and expectation of knowing our native languages.
Well, throughout Alaska, different communities have different levels of language erosion. And on the North Slope, you see quite a bit between the generations. Grandparents speak, but parents don't, and children barely know their language in many cases. So, Evon, what did you think about what you saw about the Barrow program?
It was wonderful. I think that really the concept of language nests, I've worked in places like New Zealand, Hawaii. It makes sense for us to be getting as many of them going throughout our state as we possibly can, and having diverse partnerships to help support make them happen. So it was wonderful to see.
You know, a lot of people feel reluctant. They feel like the language has eroded so far that they can't speak it perfectly. And so they're leery about it. And I know that in this particular school, you know, they're teaching words, not fluent conversations right now. Lance, any thoughts on why people should feel bad, you know, about not being able to speak perfectly?
You could take any English speaker off the street, and they probably speak very flawed English at times. And so our focus is primarily on communication. And we also stress that with our language teams that we work with here, that if you wait until the situation is just right, you're going to find that the situation is going to get much, much worse. And so our languages are in a heavy state of decline. A lot of our speakers are very elderly, and so we see the time being, we're past time, but we have to look at the right now and say language nests, immersion schools, and increased adult fluency programs.
Now, in your region, there have been a number of programs that elders have come to the schools and taught. Have you seen a lot of hope in that?
Yeah, and so we have some wonderful programs here, like the TCLL program, and also in Glacier Valley School here in Juneau, and also in the junior high and the high school. We have wonderful teachers and elders who come in and really create a lot of exposure, get the students used to the language. The concern that we have is that it's not a core part of the curriculum, and so if it's not required at the same levels as other subjects, then you're communicating to students and to everybody that it's not as important.
Well, one of the things that we're seeing now are just big cutbacks everywhere. In fact, in the university system, they cut some near and dear sports programs. So what are we going to do? How do we navigate this if we want to get these kind of programs in the schools?
I think right now is a critical time for us to be looking at what are our options? What type of transformative changes can we put into place that can help to increase our graduation rate, our college going rate, support success for our students across Alaska, and as referenced earlier in the Native Hawaiian context, full immersion schools that go K through 12 or pre-K through 12 are showing higher graduation rates and higher success rates for students going through those schools. And I think it makes complete sense for us to be looking at that. And that would also lend to opening up more opportunities for us to receive federal dollars as well to help match some of our state dollars in a potential tribal school system.
So you get a community that's struggling in preserving its language. What does having a basic program of any kind do? Let's say for the teachers of these courses, what do you see happen?
Well, it's an interesting thing because right now one of the major conversations we're also looking at, of course, within the UA system in the state is how can we restructure our schools of education to produce more teachers that will be retained, especially in rural and Alaska Native communities. And so I think that this is an incredible opportunity for us to integrate Indigenous knowledge, Indigenous languages into the teacher training programs that we offer as well.
Lance, let's go to you in Juneau. What do you see happening when a basic program gets ignited in a community?
Yeah, I think you create a lot of hope for your people, and some of the messages that we try to convey is that it's not too late and that you have everything that you need to do what you need to do, which is to get learning, get speaking, and get your kids surrounded by the language. And so we look at things in terms of whole language to say, we don't want 1,000 people that know 100 words, but we want 10,000 people who are fully fluent. And so those are some of our goals, is to try and make sure that we're looking at the integrity of the language and everything that is needed to communicate it at a level that is satisfactory to our ancestors, who are the ones delivering the messages to us about what we need to do. And some of the things that we look at is, can we make teachers fast enough? And are there decisions being made statewide that make it harder for people to become teachers, or is it going to be, it's going to take them longer to become a teacher? And I think another big initiative we need to undertake is tribal control of schools, and in particular in rural Alaska and in places where we can say, okay, we can develop a curriculum that'll work for our kids. And as Evon mentioned, the Hawaiian model, we're modeling some of our programs here after a school that has a 20-year record of a 100% graduation rate. They don't teach their language, but they teach the whole world through their language.
Well, both of you work for a state university system, and we only have one tribal college. Do we just have more tribal colleges, or do we form partnerships?
Well, I think if we look at the model of tribal self-determination, where Alaska Native tribes and peoples took over management of healthcare from the Indian Health Service, took over management of government services from the Bureau of Indian Affairs, are running successful corporations, I really think the next iteration is in self-determination and education. And I think we could see that through the formation of a potential tribal school system at K-12 that could be in partnership with the state as well as the Bureau of Indian Education at the federal level, and also with tribal colleges. And I know there's a lot of tribes and tribal organizations across the state interested in advancing a conversation around a tribal college system in the state. And I think the University of Alaska is well situated to help partner and build something together collectively.
Lance, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I fully agree. And so we currently have a piece of legislation that technically prohibits tribes from running their own schools. And I think that is impeding self-governance, which is an agreement between tribes and the federal government. And I think we need to look at things like that and say, well, let's get that out of the way, because we really need to focus on our children. The survival rate is too low, and not just a graduation rate, but a survival rate. And so I think if we bring our languages back up to a healthy level, we'll see a much healthier people. And we have to also look at these concepts like living in two worlds, which is a wonderful metaphor to talk about, but it's actually a multiplicity of worlds. We have people who are studying with us who can speak Tlingit, Haida, and Tsimshian and English, and they're brilliant, capable people. We need to say that is actually what we expect for everybody who lives in our region.
Now, in the Ilisavik College, what you saw was that the students started out with one level of language, and in the process of teaching, they picked up more of their language. Is this common?
Yeah, I think the stage that we're at with many of our Alaska Native languages across the state is where we have many people who are learning their native language as a second language while teaching. And for any teacher, you'll know the best way to learn something and to really get it ingrained in you is to learn it and then teach it right away. And in some cases, our elders will say, you know, you hear a traditional story, share it about 6 times right away within the next week, and then you'll start to lodge that in your permanent memory.
We're just about out of time, but do you think as a whole state, native or non-native, that we benefit by supporting indigenous languages?
Absolutely. I think what's good for Alaska Native students and young people is good for all Alaskans. Diversity is a really important piece of what we are here in Alaska, and I think that advances education for all of us.
All right, well, I want to thank both of you, Lance Twitchell in Juneau with our sister station Kath, and Evon Peter from the University of Alaska Fairbanks. Thank you for being with us. And on Frontiers, we do like to look at solutions as well as problems, and so we hope that we have given you some food for thought this week. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week.